Looking at Jessica Rowe, it would be easy to think that her life was picture perfect. She's a successful author and has a high-profile job as co-host of Channel 10's morning chat show Studio 10.
He would be a role model for many other people who are not as articulate as he is, and I think it's really important that we do not insult people.
Her husband is Peter Overton, the newsreader at Channel 9, and they have 2 young daughters, Allegra and Giselle. But behind that bubbly exterior is a woman who's been knocked to the floor by her mother's mental health issues, her own struggle with postnatal depression.
It's so frightening when you're on your own and you're just in your head.
And felt the full wrath of an industry that takes delight in chopping down tall poppies. But she's climbed her way back from the depths of despair time and time again. She has shown true resilience and hopes by speaking out she can help others.
Jess, thank you so much for spending time on the couch with me.
Pleasure. I love chatting with you.
I know, it is like a girly catch up.
It is.
But I want to take you right back, and so we'll go sort of chronologically. How old were you when you found out that your mum had bipolar?
Well, I suppose when I first realised that Mum wasn't like other mums was when I'd lie in bed each night, and my bedroom door was right next to Mum's. My bedroom was, and so I'd hear her crying herself to sleep night after night. And that was a very different sound and mother that I was hearing in the night that I would see in the daylight hours, because, you know, looking back now, she was clearly using all of her strength and to try and in the day put on the brave face. But then the nights would become more frequent, they'd go on for longer and longer, and then Mum would end up in hospital. So I was maybe about 8 when I remember those sorts of incidents. And it was really, really awful because, you know, I'd always put Mum up on a pedestal. Wow. You know, as a little girl, I had 2 younger sisters. You always think your mum's invincible. And I was really unsure what to do, but I knew then that something wasn't quite right. And I couldn't go to sleep when I would hear her crying. And so I'd get up, but I was too frightened to go into her bedroom. So I remember I used to just sit against her bedroom door, and I'd just sit there, and I wouldn't be able to go back to bed and go to sleep until I knew that Mum had stopped crying. So I have a really clear memory of that. But then Mum wasn't diagnosed with bipolar until I was probably 10 or 11. And again, with Mum's diagnosis, I didn't know what that actually meant. Yeah. Mum was always very open about her illness, and I think for her, the diagnosis was a real relief because it gave an explanation to what she'd been feeling her whole life. When difficult things happen in your life, you can assume different sorts of roles and patterns of behaviour. So my role was to be the cheerleader and the one to be going, okay, here we go.
Buck up.
That's right. And all right, what could I tell Mum? What story could I tell her that might make her laugh? Or what could I do to try and make the situation better? Not realising, of course, that I had set myself an impossible task.
Yeah. Is it still a strain?
Oh, it is, of course. Yeah. It's funny, when Mum gets sick, I still feel that same sense of powerlessness, vulnerability, and a sense of it not being fair. More now as a grown-up, I have got better tools with realising that is not my job.
Yeah.
My job is obviously to be there for my mum, to listen, to support her, but I don't have to fix it.
You always wanted to be a mum yourself, and then you found out you had PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, which I also have, and that really affects fertility. How was that?
Well, I had never thought that I'd have a problem falling pregnant. I don't think
anyone would.
I think you know, there's almost this assumption that I'm a woman, therefore biologically I can have a child, carry a child and give birth to a baby. And so when I discovered that wasn't going to be quite as simple or straightforward for me, it was a real shock. And that surprised me how shocked I felt, because I had always just thought it'll just happen. It's not going to be an issue. And it really made me question, well, I felt like my body was letting me down. I felt like, oh no, who am I now that I might not be able to be a mum? And it gave me a whole new sense of that we take things for granted,
Yeah.
and we assume that it's easy for everyone,
Yeah.
and it's not.
And you're not a failure
No,
if it doesn't happen for you.
Exactly.
Which is really hard because a lot of women feel that.
Yes, but you see, I was lucky though, Shelley, because I was able eventually to fall pregnant. I went through IVF and I was able to have Allegra.
How old is she now?
She's 8.
She's 8. So you would think, because she was so wanted, that it would be all, fairy lights and rainbows. Didn't turn out that way, did it?
No, and it was one of the, if not the hardest times of my life, when I realised I had postnatal depression. And
Did you know?
no, well,
So
you
were
know
just
what,
feeling bad. Tell me what the feelings were like.
yeah.
Like, what was?
if I'm really honest, I knew deep down, I knew, but I didn't want to know. I wanted.
Is that because of your mum?
Yeah. And I felt incredibly guilty because I knew how much I wanted to have this baby. I knew how much I wanted Allegra. I had the most beautiful and still have the most beautiful husband, Petey, in the world. I had my happy ending. I had my dream.
Yeah.
I had this family that I had hoped for and prayed to have. And I thought I should be the happiest woman in the world, but I wasn't. I had never felt so wretched and lost in my life. And that absolutely knocked me off my axis, because something that I had yearned for, and I had thought, why am I feeling like this? I felt I had no right to feel like that because I had everything I had wished for and hoped for. And it was terrible. It crept up on me in terms of I had a really positive birthing experience with Allegra, which I was thankful for and very lucky to have. But then I couldn't breastfeed. I never knew nipples could bleed.
Yeah.
And they bled, and it was so painful, and it was excruciting. And
again, there's a lot of pressure on women
so
about
much
breastfeeding.
pressure.
And if you can't breastfeed, you're a failure. So I just feel so sad that is our default with women.
Yeah.
Blame yourself.
That's right.
Feel
It's
like
my
a failure.
fault. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can't even feed my baby. I'm a terrible mother. So there was that. Allegra hadn't been putting on enough weight, so I was freaking out about that. Your sleep patterns when you have a newborn baby, you're not sleeping, and then I'd be getting anxious. Also, I lost my job, so there was all these things compounding, and Allegra was IVF, so there was all this kind of expectation that I'd put on myself. I'd imagined this is what it would be like, and it was the absolute opposite. And I remember I couldn't sleep at night, even though it wasn't getting a lot of sleep. There was sort of patches where I thought I can at least put my head down. I couldn't sleep.
Stressing.
So it was like just this constant thoughts going round and round in my head. I felt really distant from the world. It was like there was this pane of glass that was slowly sort of becoming between me and everyone around me, and that was very frightening for someone like me who's
so
always been
tactile
very
and you're
present.
part of everything. Yeah.
So I felt like I was removed from everything, and I was very anxious, very worried about what would happen to Allegra, and the worries were way out of kilter with the reality.
Were you worried about harming her?
Well, not that I knew I'd never harm her, but I did have some very kind of scary, obsessive thoughts about what might happen. I remember there was this clock, this wretched clock that I'd look at all the time to time the breastfeeds. And I used to think about, oh my goodness, what if that clock fell and smashed her on the head? And then I would think about the knives it was terrible, in the kitchen drawer, you know, how easily those knives could cut her. And it was so frightening because these thoughts just kept repeating themselves in my mind. And I remember one time I wrapped up all the knives in newspaper and threw them in the bin, thinking then the thoughts will go away. But of course they didn't.
No.
And it was really, I felt like I was going crazy, like I was losing my mind, literally, because it's like, this is so out of whack with what is happening and with who I am. And I still put on the brave face because, you see, I'd had a lifetime
You knew how to fake it.
of training with my mum. So I'd smile, put on my sunglasses, and no one would know. You know, I hid it from everyone, hid it from Peter, from everyone.
So tell me about when you did tell Peter. Was that like a massive moment?
And I think what I actually did first of all was that I spoke to Mum, because I knew, I thought if anyone's going to understand, it's going to be Mum. And I said to Mum, I'm having these really scary thoughts. I'm thinking about all these things, and I told her, and she reassured me. She said, you know, they're just thoughts, that they're just thoughts, but you do need to talk to your doctor and you need to tell Peter. You need to get help. This will not go away. And so I needed to hear that. And so then I spoke, then I thought, okay, I've got to tell Peter. And then, you know, we're sitting on the couch talking, and I was sort of building up the courage. You know, you procrastinate, you think, I'll do it after this. And I thought, come on, you just do it. And I took a deep breath, and he was saying, oh, it's not, you know, it's just wonderful. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so well. And I thought, now's my moment. And so I said to him, I said, I'm not. I really, I'm not doing well. I'm really frightened, and I think I have postnatal depression. And I just burst into tears. And he was such a darling, because he took me in his arms and he said, it's going to be okay. And that's what I needed to hear. Yeah, it's what I needed to hear, because I didn't need at that time judgment or don't be so ridiculous, you're imagining it.
I'll fix you.
It was just, it's going to be okay. And he's a good hugger, my Petey. But I'll never forget the way just he held me, and I felt safe. I felt safe.
Yeah.
And listening to him say, it's going to be all right, I believed him.
Just take me back to when you went to the psychiatrist for the first time.
I walked into her room, sat down, very comfy chair in front of her, and the first thing she said to me was, you can stop pretending now. And it was like this weight was coming off my shoulders, because it gave me permission.
Take the mask off.
Yeah, it gave me permission to talk about how I was feeling on the inside, that I'd bottled up and thought I have to keep hidden for so long. And I remember telling her everything, and I was waiting for her to go, oh, you are really crazy. You are
cuckoo,
crazy lady. But she said to me, she said, that's normal. And I went, what? Normal? Like I literally, I'm losing my mind, and you're telling me this is normal. And she said, yes, what I'm telling you is what you are feeling is normal for someone.
When you've got postnatal depression.
Exactly, who has postnatal depression. Wow. And again, that sort of, was a bit of a weight, because it was like, this is what this is.
Yeah.
This is an illness. This isn't me making it up. This isn't me being a failure as a mum. This isn't my mum. This is me.
Yeah. Can I ask you, and forgive me if this sounds rude, when you have postnatal depression, does it just last a certain time, or is that something that you then have to deal with forever?
Well, in terms of, I don't know the medical answer to that, but it typically describes the first couple of years following the birth of a baby, of your baby. But I know with me, like I'm still on my antidepressants, and I realise that I am more vulnerable to depression and anxiety, and that's just part of my genetic makeup. So I'm still on my medication. I catch up with my psychiatrist, not as regularly, and kind
of like when you need to tune up the car.
That's right. That's right. But I see a counsellor on a regular basis, where we talk about different sorts of issues, how I can handle things better, and also, although it's kind of a work in progress, I try to be gentler on myself.
Yeah.
Because I think all of us,
It's so hard.
we've got to be perfect at this, and this, and look fabulous at the same time, all of that. And it's not real life.
Now, did you speak to your psychiatrist about whether or not losing your job at Channel 9 actually played into the postnatal depression? Or are they separate?
Oh, definitely played a part.
Yeah.
Of course it did. Of course it did. It's impossible to say one particular incident was more significant than another. But I sort of had a whole lot of things that were not in my favour. There was the genetic component in terms of mental health issues. IVF, if you have IVF, you've got a higher chance of having postnatal depression. Major life changes, which was me losing my job, and breastfeeding issues. So there was all of that. So
the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, boom, let's throw it all in there. But I think for sure, because
it was a national story. And how do you feel when you hear the word boned?
Oh, I hate it. I still hate it. I really I've got a good sense of humour, but that's the one thing I can't joke about, and I don't find anything funny about it. I think it's a really demeaning, sexist, and awful term,
Which it is.
and I don't like to be reminded of the time in my life that it sort of applied to, and so I don't like it.
I was thinking about it. It was kind of before social media was really big.
It was.
And I think, though, it was like you were trolled by the media. Don't you think that's what
isn't that? Yeah. I've never, in fact, thought of it like that, but
it was like a witch hunt.
Yes. It was really, it's kind of bizarre. I look back on that time in my life as it was such a strange sort of bubble to be in the midst of.
An ugly bubble.
An awful bubble.
A shit bubble. It was a shit bubble.
And you know I don't swear, Shelley, but I could say a whole lot more.
Yeah, that must be just...
Yeah, and
just wash that, those couple of years off.
But you know what? Here's me with the silver lining again, but that year I learned so much. I learned so much about myself, what you can endure, who your real friends are, don't you discover that, and also what matters.
You're now co-host on Studio 10. Seems like a very happy job.
I love it. I love it. Do you know what? I feel like I'm in a purple patch. I think that's the right saying. But I feel like I'm in this sweet spot. I feel like I'm sort of in this sweet spot in my life where life is good and I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm not perfect. I'm far from it. But I feel happy and I feel blessed to have the beautiful family and my beautiful girls. And I feel lucky to do something for me, for my head as well. And being back at work has helped me rediscover that part of myself again, but on my terms.
So it's like this phoenix rose from the ashes and gave Eddie the finger. Do you ever just feel like doing that? You may not get the finger.
Maybe a glittery wave or something, but my dearest eldest daughter, Allegra, does say, because we like to look at Petey on the news each night, see what Ty's wearing, just say good night. She goes, Mummy, because Deal or No Deal's on before. No, it's not Deal. Is it Deal? Anyway.
No, Millionaire?
Yes, the Millionaire, whatever.
Whatever, we don't watch it.
We don't watch it, but anyway, my daughter will say to me, Mummy, we've got to mute him. Let's mute that man. That man wasn't nice to you. Let's mute him. I'm like, yes, let's mute him.
I love it. Well, I am so proud of you. And I just feel really lucky that we've had a chance to talk about this and so many women will see it and you just never know who you're going to help. So thank you for your resilience.
Thank you, beautiful.